We consider the scenario of the businessman Narayan and his friend Sundar coming to borrow a certain amount of money from him again. Now over here we find that Sundar is asking for a sum of rupees 15,000 because he has landed in some sort of financial difficulty. Now the rate of interest that Narayan is charging remains the same, 20%. Now what is the extra amount of money that Sundar will have to pay in order to be able to borrow this rupees 15,000? That is equal to P into R into T divided by 100, as we have seen from our previous discussions. So over here, if I replace the values of P, that is 15,000, R, that is 20, and T, that is 1, divided by 100, if I simplify this equation, I will get, by cancelling the zeros, 150 into 20. So 150 into 20 is nothing but rupees 3,000. So rupees 3,000 is the additional amount of money that Sundar will have to pay to Narayan in order to be able to borrow 15,000. So what is the final amount of money that Sundar is paying back to Narayan? That will be 15,000 plus 3,000 equal to rupees 18,000. So we find that when Sundar is borrowing money equal to rupees 15,000 for 1 year at the rate of 20%, he is having to pay an additional amount of 3,000, thereby paying back a final amount of 18,000 to Narayan. Now Sundar faced a slight difficulty while paying the money back. Now once he had paid back the money, he landed into another trouble that same day. So Sundar again came to Narayan saying that he had faced some difficulty again, and he wants this rupees 18,000 for Narayan to lend him again. So now he borrows rupees 18,000 instead of 15,000, because on the same day that he returned 18,000, he needed that 18,000 for some other work. So for the second year, he is again borrowing a sum of money equal to 18,000 at 20% rate of interest. So in this case, we calculate PRT by 100. If I put the values, P is 18,000, R is 20%, and T is 1. This is for the second year, divided by 100. So cancelling the zeros, I get 180 into 20. That is nothing but rupees 3,600. So what is the final amount of money that Sundar will have to pay back to Narayan at the end of the second year? That is 18,000, the money he had borrowed at the beginning of second year, plus the additional amount of money, 3,600. So that is equal to rupees 21,600. So at the end of the second year, after borrowing a sum of rupees 18,000 at its beginning, Sundar is paying back 21,600 to Narayan. Now another friend of Narayan, Shekhar, comes to Narayan with his difficulty. Shekhar wants a sum of rupees 15,000, just like Sundar had wanted, but Shekhar wants it for a period of 2 years. Now Narayan has a fixed rate of interest, so he's charging it at 20%. So if we calculate PRT by 100, we will find that the amount of money that Shekhar will be paying back to Narayan at the end of 2 years is equal to rupees 6,000. This is the additional amount of money that Shekhar will have to pay in order to borrow 15,000 for 2 years. And the total amount of money that Shekhar is paying back is 15,000 plus 6,000 equal to 21,000. Now Narayan notices that there is a slight discrepancy. What is that discrepancy? Over here, both Shekhar as well as Sundar are borrowing a sum of 15,000 from Narayan. So at the end of the first year, since the rate of interest is the same, both of them are paying back rupees 3,000, that is the additional amount. So the total money that they are paying back is 15,000 plus 3,000, that is rupees 18,000. So 18,000 is the total money being paid back at the end of first year. Now, what is happening in both the cases is slightly different. Shekhar is not returning this money immediately back to Narayan. Instead, he is keeping it for the second year. Whereas Sundar returned the money to Narayan, but on the same day found himself in another difficulty, which is why he borrowed back the same amount of money, 18,000, at the beginning of the second year. So what happened was, at the second year, the extra amount of money that Sundar had to pay in order to borrow 18,000 was rupees 3,600. But since Shekhar did not return the 18,000, he had to pay the rate of interest on the original sum of money, that is 15,000, because Shekhar hadn't returned 18,000 at the end of first year. So Narayan now finds that at the end of second year, the two interests paid by these two friends of his are different. One is paying back rupees 3,600 and the other one is paying back rupees 3,000. So if we calculate the amount in both their cases at this point of time, we get for Sundar, it is rupees 21,600. That is 18,000 which he borrowed back at the beginning of second year plus the additional amount of money. Whereas in the case of Shekhar, it is nothing but 15,000 plus 3,000 plus 3,000, giving us rupees 21,000. So Narayan now finds that he is able to earn rupees 600 more. As you can see, Narayan is earning rupees 600 more from Sundar as he is earning from Shekhar. So Narayan, being a very clever person, wonders that instead of lending out money at simple interest, what if he adds a slight twist to his transactions? Consider the scenario. Over here, 15,000 is the amount of money being borrowed by both his friends, and the rate of interest being 20%, they are having to pay an extra of 20% on this 15,000. So the interest is 3,000 at the end of first year for both the cases. But in the second year, since Sundar was borrowing back the money after paying him back, he will have to pay an interest on both the original sum of money, that is 15,000, as well as on the interest at the end of first year. So Sundar is paying an interest of 20% on the original principal as well as 20% on the interest. Whereas Shekhar, who hadn't returned any sum of money but had kept this 18,000 with him, is having to pay 20% on 15,000 even in the second year. So now Narayan sees that if he puts an interest on interest, then he is able to earn more. 20% of 15,000 is 3,000. 20% of 3,000 is 600. So Narayan finds that if he charges an interest on interest, he will be able to earn more money. So now another borrower comes to him. He is Daniel. Now Narayan had learnt his lesson about charging interest on interest and how he can earn more money. So here Daniel is borrowing a sum of 10,000 rupees at the rate of 20% for 2 years. So let us calculate what the interest for first year will be. That interest will be P into R into T divided by 100. So if I replace the values, I will get P 10,000 into R, that is 20, into T, that is 1, because we are interested only for the first year, divided by 100. So if I cancel out the zeros and simplify the expression, I get 100 into 20. That is nothing but rupees 2,000. So the interest is 2000. Likewise, we can calculate the amount that Daniel will have to pay back at the end of first year. That will be the principal plus interest, which is equal to 10,000 plus 2,000, that equals rupees 12,000. So 12,000 is the amount that Daniel is paying back. So the principal for second year will now not be rupees 10,000. Why? Because in this case, Narayan wants to charge an interest on interest. So it will be 20% on 10,000 as well as 20% on 2,000. Or in other words, in this case, the new principal will be the amount at the end of the first year. So the principal for the second year will be the amount at the end of first year. That is equal to rupees 12,000. So now let us see how this helps Narayan in earning more money. So the interest for the second year, instead of 10,000 into 20 into 1, will be 12,000 into 20 into 1 divided by 100. So simplifying this equation, I will get 120 into 20. That is equal to rupees 2,400. So 2,400 is the interest that Daniel is having to pay for the second year. So what will be the amount at the end of second year? Similarly, we can calculate the amount as rupees 12,000 plus 2,400. That is the principal for the second year plus interest for second year. And this will give us rupees 14,400. So 14,400 is the amount at the end of second year that Daniel will be paying back to Narayan when initially he had borrowed a sum of 10,000 rupees. So over here, let's see what is happening. Principal, that is the amount of money that Daniel is originally borrowing, is 10,000 rupees, and the extra amount of money that Daniel is paying is 2,000. So the amount of money that Daniel is paying back at the end of first year is 12,000, but Daniel is not giving this money back to Narayan at the end of first year. He is keeping that money. However, Narayan, being a clever person, is not now going to charge 20% only on 10,000. He will charge 20% on both the 10,000 as well as the 2,000. So 20% will be charged on this 12,000. So for the second year, the principal for the second year will now become amount that was there at the end of the first year. So the principal for the second year is 12,000. So the principal for the second year is equal to the amount for the first year, that is equal to rupees 12,000. And what is the interest that Daniel will have to pay for the second year? Calculating PRT by 100, we found out that the interest for the second year is equal to rupees 2,400. So at the end of the second year, Daniel would have to pay a total of rupees 14,400 back to Narayan. Thus we see that 14,400 is the total amount of money that Daniel is returning to Narayan at the end of second years. Now what do you think would have happened if interest on interest was not charged by Narayan? In that case, we would have obtained a simple interest of P, that is 10,000, into R, 20%, into T, that is 2. So simplifying this, we would have got 100 into 20 into 2. That is nothing but rupees 4,000. So the amount of money in that case that Daniel would have had to return would have been rupees 10,000 plus rupees 4,000 equal to rupees 14,000. So as you can clearly see, Narayan, being a shrewd person, having charged interest on interest, is being able to earn 400 rupees more. So this addition of interest on interest is known as compounding of interest. So here we find that the interest is being compounded, or in other words, the principal for the second year is the amount for the first year. And this ensures that every year the extra rate of interest that is charged on the principal as well as the extra amount, that is the interest for the previous year. And this is known as compounding of interest or compound interest. So how can we calculate the compound interest? The compound interest is nothing but what we get if we subtract the total amount of money that has been returned after a given period of time minus the original sum that was borrowed. In this case, 14,400 minus 10,000, which gives us 4,400. As you can see, this 4,400 is also equal to the individual interests for the individual years. So in either way, we can calculate the compound interest. If we subtract the original sum from the total money that is being returned at the end of the given period, we get compound interest. Or if we simply add the interests of the individual years, we will get the compound interest. Thus, we find that 4,400 represents the compound interest, and these are the two ways in which it can be obtained. Either by subtracting the original amount, that is the original sum of money borrowed, from the final amount paid, or simply by adding the interests for the individual years. In this case, it was 2 years. If we had more number of years, then by simple addition, we get the compound interest.